Greetings. It is the Osho. Are you prepared to be initiated? How spooky are we? Are we spooky? What's the spookiness level? Are you prepared to be initiated? Oh, I'll initiate you, alright. Anyone on the Infinite Couch heard of these before? Ever heard of Hermetic? Or the mythological god Hermes? There are 7 Hermetic principles. If you actually want to get in depth on those, I actually like the spook. I recommend checking out this book, The Kybalion. I think you can find it on Kindle for a couple bucks. The book from 1912. It's also available free online. I can give you this link actually. We're gonna talk about these today. Then we're gonna play Blood Dragon. Hope you're doing well. Now, I'm also down to entertain some questions on the principles, but I'll have to limit it to a few per, if there are any. Since there's 7 to talk about. Well, Nixon, tell me who Hermes is. If you've heard of him. Now, the Hermes referred to here is a mythological figure who may or may not have existed. but the Hermes of Greek myth is related. Their the name is an homage. But that's not what we're talking about today. You've probably heard the term hermetically sealed. That's a reference to these as well. It is said, get the maximum spooky here. It is said that there was a time when these principles and scientific principles were regarded side by side. So some people call these natural laws. A good way to think of these Hermetic principles is they're perhaps the why to the how of the universe, like the principles behind why physics, physical reality, the universe, quantum physics is how it is. Maybe you could think of it as if physics is the rules of the game, the Hermetic principles are the reasons for the rules, the thoughts in the game designer's mind. Speaking of mind, alright, I gotta be able to read here. So the first one is the principle of mentalism. Now that's the concept that the universe is entirely illusory, imagined. Probably cooler if I hold the candle, right? Many world religions already have that as a cornerstone. For instance, in Buddhism, Maya refers to the illusory world, or take your pick. But when it comes down to it, this principle indicates that the principle of mentalism, that all of reality, and this includes the entire infinite universe, is essentially a thought in perhaps like a dreaming god in Hinduism called Brahman. So that is the principle of mentalism. Now, the second Hermetic principle is the principle of correspondence, and you've probably heard the phrase as above, so below, which is actually a shortened version of the full version, which is also as below, so above. This essentially describes the relationship that these natural laws or Hermetic principles, this principle of correspondence, have with physical reality itself. Meaning, this is all the way it is as a result of its conforming to these natural, and again, in ancient times, allegedly, these were thought to be just as much a part of science as physics and things, chemistry. This was the why. Why does chemistry work? Why does physics work? So this correspondence, the principle of correspondence, is the relationship between these natural laws, hidden laws, hermetic principles, and physical reality. It's a little bit like if you've ever seen how a hologram works. It's the thing, the natural laws would be the thing that light is projected through to create the hologram, which is the physical reality. Yes, Salty, this is Dungeons and Dragons. Third principle is vibration. Now this one you use in your day-to-day life, you never even realize it. You talk about good vibes, bad vibes, negative vibes, positive vibes. You acknowledge it. Well, here it is, the principle of vibration. And it specifically corresponds to, in essence, this flame is very high vibration. It's so high vibration, it's flickering in and out of existence. I'm comparably very low vibration because I'm physical. I'm solid matter. My desk is even lower vibration than me. You can kind of see how that goes. That's a simple principle to understand. Vibration. The principle of vibration. I don't think more needs to be said than that. But feel free to jump in if you have any more questions, including if I'm playing D&D. We're playing D&D right now. Fourth principle of the Hermetic variety is polarity. Now that is perfectly timed because, well, what does it vibrate between? Well, it vibrates between poles, or the principle of polarity. So there is a spectrum of polarity to all things. And what you find is that there is actually no difference between the ends of the pole except in degrees. So here's a beautiful example of this that's easy to understand. This is hot, and so the atoms of it are vibrating very rapidly, right? Whereas what is called cold is atoms vibrating not so rapidly, right? We just talked about the principle of vibration. Now we're talking about the principle of polarity. Well, there's your polarity. Really, hot and cold are simply how fast are the atoms vibrating. But we have a conceptual polarity because it is one of the principles governing the universe. And this is true of anything, even conceptual ideals like the love versus hate, or trying to think of a very esoteric one. Even sweet versus sour. The principle of polarity applies. Wampu says, if not the god, then what is this Hermes? Well, Hermes Trismegistus, or however the fuck you say it, is a legendary occultist who is said to exist in the ancient world. But I think that he is, in my opinion, more of a mythological, idealized figure to be symbolic rather than a real person. But who knows? And these laws are named after him. Hermes Trismegistus or some shit. I never really learned how to pronounce the last name. I've never heard anyone pronounce it the same way twice. Who fucking knows? Fifth principle is the principle of rhythm. This is another one that is so fundamental to our reality that you could have told me that this was one of the Hermetic principles, the natural laws, before I told you it was. Because what is it? Well, what season are we in right now? Americans. Winter. Then there's a rhythm. You get spring, summer, fall. Goes back around. Or, similarly, we had a society here in America that went very, very, socially liberal. And now it's moving socially conservative. There's a rhythm. There's a pendulum. This principle is important for two reasons. I haven't been going too in depth on these, just giving you the surface. But it's important because, number one, if you're aware of that rhythm, which you are to some degree, whether you like it or not, you feel it. Whether it's cultural or you're feeling the seasons or whatever. If you're aware of it, you can use it to your advantage. Do the right things at the right times. Or in yourself. And this is, and we're not talking about this tonight, but you've heard of alchemy. Turning something into gold. That's you. That's yourself. Turning into gold, right? So, you can use your understanding of the principle of rhythm to understand the rhythms in yourself and use the good ones, modify or neutralize the bad ones. Rhythm, the principle of rhythm, the fifth principle. Sixth principle, principle of cause and effect. And again, bear in mind how these principles have been neatly stacking together. It's all mental. If it's all mental, things correspond. Your mental state corresponds to the reality that you perceive. Others' mental state corresponds to the reality that they perceive. All of that together corresponds to the reality we all perceive. How you are inside is how you'll be outside. If you're trying to change your outside, change your inside. Vibration. Well, you want to increase your vibration, elevate your frequency. Polarity gives you the context for vibration, positive or negative, but there's so many: noise, quiet, high, low, light, darkness. Then you have rhythm, the timing in which the first four principles manifest. Then we come to the sixth principle, cause and effect. That's very simple. This one is a tricky one. Jupiter asks, am I schizophrenic? Yes. What up, sausage? So the cause and effect principle is another one that you see reflected in physics, which is every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So a really cool understanding of that one is, I feel like the dominant look out there is that the universe is essentially chaotic, entropic, randomly determined. And while there is kind of an X factor out there of entropy, I can't remember the exact quote, but essentially something that you perceive as random, or chaos, as you only do because you can't understand all the chain of events that led to it. So you shut down and say it's just chaos, when in actuality it's so intricately and carefully orchestrated that you can't understand it. So you just call it it's bullshit. So this is the principle of cause and effect, the sixth Hermetic principle. Everything has a cause and effect. Meaning everything about you, your situation, your experience, your reality has a cause somewhere that has led to that effect, and you can get in there and change it. In accordance to this principle, and you might say, well, that means you don't have free will. You don't, until you realize that principle of cause and effect. What up, Jupiter? Nah, man, I just like to fuck around and do esoteric talks from time to time. Then in a minute, I'm gonna start playing some Blood Dragon. So this is the last principle. I told y'all we would be pretty quick on this. It's only been like 30 minutes. I wanted to save some time to give people an opportunity to ask questions, and then we'll jump into starting up Blood Dragon. Seventh principle is the principle of gender. Here comes the triggering. Salty, you can always post links. So before you get triggered, understand that this principle confirms what you might get triggered about. You know, if you're trans, you support trans rights, all that. Well, the seventh principle is for you. It talks about, we've talked about polarity, right? Gender is a polarity in accordance with the Hermetic principles, meaning there's a masculine end. The occult symbol usually is a pyramid, well, or a triangle or a blade. And then the feminine end, usually a chalice. The blade and the chalice is pretty clear imagery. Or an inverted pyramid, inverted triangle. And a human can fall anywhere on that spectrum. Now, whether or not you think there's a solid dividing line in the middle and you're a boy or a girl, or if you think there's all kinds of different ones in between, sure, you can debate that all you want. But there's a masculine end and a feminine end of the scale. And that is the principle of gender. But remember, these are laws that are operating above the natural laws, things like gravity, physics, the way our world, even the way we perceive reality, consciousness itself, right? So what that means is, in all animals, in every aspect of life, you can see this at work. There's a masculine, there's a feminine, there's different vibrational frequencies. There can be a positive and a negative, whether it's a predator destroying an animal or some, deer grazing in a field, or just the fact that there's the reproductive cycle at all throughout all of life. Because if you think about the materialist view of the universe, it's all this shit is happening. It's a big complex machine. Well, why? Well, these Hermetic principles are the ancient world's attempt, it may be a very wise one, to talk about why, to take a deeper look. And you find that these hold up pretty good scrutiny, whether you're looking at them in a scientific way, or even you're just looking at them at how things operate in social circles and groups of people interacting, whatever it might be. What up, Stone? Yeah, it's a perfect Friday the 13th stream to do. Nixon says I'm agender shit lord. Nope. Alright. That's really it. Pretty simple. I'll post the link one more time. What I was showing you here, like I mentioned earlier, comes from a longer book from 1912 called The Kybalion. It's free at that link. And you can also get the Sacred Text DVD-ROM version 9.0. But you can like I mentioned earlier, it's on Amazon. You can get it on your Kindle for a couple bucks too. That's how I like to read it, but if you're broke, you can just read it on here. It's pretty short. Talks about this and more. But these are the 7 Hermetic principles. Do y'all have any spooky questions for me? Before we move on to the blood dragoning. Tonight I'm also starting a playthrough of Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. It's gonna be my main game for a while until I finish it, but here it's pretty short. So that's what I'll be playing tonight. I haven't actually read either of those, Sausage. The cool thing about being interested in the occult is there's always some kind of new book to read, but you're also gonna be reading a lot of rehashes of the same ideas, because you gotta keep in mind that a lot of occultism was more in vogue during a non-internet and really non-technological age, meaning that there would be all kinds of different copies and interpretations of the same essential knowledge, because this one fool would hear about it and then he'd go over in his town and, a lot of times be like, oh shit, I know this, so I'm gonna use it to my advantage and try to be like, ha ha ha. And then this other fool will go and like start his own little thing, and so So a lot of the shit you read is just, oh yeah, same thing. Just he changed a couple of symbols and then said, "Ah, I'm so unique." Jupiter asks if there's demons in my room. You mean my lair? I don't know. Could you check for me real quick? Do you see any? I think I just saw one. Do you see that one appear right down there? Shit. I'll hold this for protection. What definition of demon do you have, Jupiter? So, a demon is a intelligence of a certain complexity. You're a demon. By that definition, I'm a demon. This computer's a demon. This cat that you might be able to hear snoring right down below me is a demon. Just a monad or a intelligence of, or a meme of sufficient complexity. Pepe the Frog could be considered a demon. Keck could be considered a demon. Or even Moloch. Wampu says, what would you recommend for someone who wants to learn about the occult? The Kybalion, that free book I linked, isn't a bad place to start. It's a very personal experience, so can't really do what I say necessarily. But if you start reading the Kybalion and it clicks, read that. Maybe check out, just Google Hermetic philosophy or whatever, you know? Hermetic principles. See what you find. See what finds you. Because again, these principles indicate that reality doesn't work exactly the way you would think from a purely materialistic view of the universe. And part of that has to do with the discovery of knowledge. And the fact that sometimes knowledge can discover you. The beauty of the internet, sausage. Now everything's been translated. You can find a lot of it for free. If not for free, it's usually $1 or $2 on Kindle. I think we're done. I think we're done. Alright, we're gonna take a little break and then switch over to Blood Dragon. Let me get everything updated. The title and so forth.
Peace, what's going on? This is Stolen Drums. You are locked into.
Hell yeah, Swampu. Friday the 13th seemed like a good day to do a spooky talk about the Hermetic principles. Hopefully you learned something. You were initiated as well. But like I said, we're going to be starting the next main game on the O Show tonight. Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. I played this game a little bit when it first came out. It's very funny. Before that, I'm going to pee. And I actually spilled some candle wax on me here on my hand. I'm so hardcore that I didn't even make a sound about it. But I am, now I let it dry, so I'm getting that off too. Alright, y'all, let me take care of business. And then, it'll be normal Devo instead of spooky Devo, and we'll enjoy some Blood Dragon.